The desert stretched endlessly, golden sand rolling under the hot light of two suns. Daniel adjusted the strap of his pack and brushed dust off the scanner he carried. The machine beeped faintly, showing a strange pulse coming from deep beneath the dunes. He stopped walking, his heart racing as the signal grew stronger. For weeks he had been chasing this mystery, and now he was finally close. Daniel was not the first human to explore these lands. Many before him had tried to dig through the alien ruins, but they had left empty-handed or broken by the dangers within. The alien settlers who lived near the ruins had one warning for all outsiders: never step near the crypt of the Jade Serpent. It was said to be cursed, a forbidden place sealed for thousands of years. But Daniel did not believe in curses. He believed in discovery. Humanity had traveled far from Earth to find a place among the stars, and he knew they needed more than courage. They needed power, knowledge, and allies. If the crypt held secrets of the Jade Serpent, it might be the key to protecting humanity in the future. As the scanner beeped again, Daniel bent down and brushed sand away with his hands. Underneath lay a fragment of smooth stone, carved with strange lines that glowed faintly green. He smiled to himself. This was no ordinary ruin. The wind picked up, carrying whispers in the alien tongue. A group of settlers stood not far away, watching him with wary eyes. Among them was Myra, a young translator who often worked between humans and the settlers. She stepped forward, raising her hand. "Daniel," she called out in a calm voice, "you should stop. That place is not meant for us. The Jade Serpent guards it still." Daniel straightened and gave her a half smile. "You know me, Myra. I don't run from old stories. If something down there is calling, I have to find it." Myra's dark eyes narrowed. She had heard the tales since childhood. The Jade Serpent was not just a guardian, but a judge. It tested those who dared enter, and none had returned unchanged. Still, she could see Daniel's determination. He was stubborn, a trait common in humans but rare among her people. "You risk more than your own life," she warned. "If you awaken what sleeps below, it may bring danger to us all." Daniel looked back at the glowing stone. "Or it might bring hope. Humanity has fought hard to stand here among the stars. If the serpent is real, maybe it can be more than a legend. Maybe it can be an ally." Myra hesitated. She admired Daniel's spirit, though she thought it reckless. Yet something about the way the stone glowed, the way the air trembled around it, made her wonder if he was right. The settlers had feared the crypt for generations, but perhaps no one had ever tried to face it with open courage. The sun began to sink, and shadows stretched across the desert. The ruins nearby, tall broken spires of stone, seemed to lean closer as if listening. Daniel packed his scanner and looked toward Myra. "I'll go in at night," he said simply. "If you want to stop me, you'll have to follow." For a moment she said nothing. Then, to her own surprise, Myra nodded. "If you must go, then I will come with you. Someone has to read the walls inside, and someone has to remind you when courage becomes foolishness." Daniel laughed softly, a sound that eased the tension between them. Then it settled. "Tonight we see what the Jade Serpent hides." That evening, while the settlers lit their fires and the desert grew cold, Daniel and Myra walked quietly toward the ruins. The stars above burned bright, and the moons cast silver light on the broken stones. The entrance to the crypt was hidden, but Daniel's scanner guided them. Soon they stood before a massive slab of jade-colored rock, half buried in sand. Strange carvings ran across its surface, symbols of coiled serpents and human shapes locked hand in hand. Myra touched the carvings lightly, her fingers tracing the lines. "These are older than my people's history," she whispered. "It speaks of a pact. Humans and the serpent standing as one. But if this is true, that bond was broken long ago." Daniel pressed his hand against the stone. The carvings glowed faintly under his touch, as if answering him. The slab trembled, and a deep sound echoed from within, like a heart waking after long sleep. Both of them stepped back, their breaths caught. The desert wind stilled, and the night grew heavy. For the first time, Myra felt the truth in the old warnings. Something within the crypt was alive, waiting. Daniel's eyes burned with determination. "This isn't a curse," he said quietly. "It's a call." The jade slab split slowly down the middle, revealing a narrow passage glowing with pale green light. The air that rushed out was ancient, carrying the weight of forgotten centuries. Daniel looked at Myra, and she could see the choice in his face. She sighed, knowing there was no turning him back now. "Then we step forward," she said, "but we do so together." And so the two of them crossed the threshold into the forbidden crypt, unaware that every step would draw them deeper into a trial that would test not just their courage, but the bond between humanity and the forgotten guardian of the stars. The passage was narrow and cold. As Daniel and Myra stepped into the crypt, the heavy jade slab closed behind them with a low rumble. The sound echoed for a long time, until only silence remained. The green glow along the walls lit their way, but the light felt strange, almost alive. Daniel kept one hand on the scanner strapped to his chest. The signal was stronger now, pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. He felt excitement in every step, but Myra walked carefully, her eyes scanning the walls. Carvings stretched along the stone. They showed scenes of tall serpent-like beings coiling around humans, not in battle but in unity. In one panel, humans stood side by side with the serpent figures, their hands raised as if in agreement. In another, humans held strange spears while the serpents formed protective circles around them. Myra whispered, "This is not what I expected. My people always said the Jade Serpent was a guardian, but I never knew humans were part of its story." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why the signal called me. Maybe humanity has been part of this all along." The air grew cooler the deeper they walked. The floor shifted from smooth jade to rough stone, and drops of water echoed in the distance. Daniel's boots crunched softly while Myra moved with quiet grace. Their voices seemed too loud in the stillness, so they spoke little. Soon they came to a wide chamber. The ceiling rose high, carved with spirals that seemed to move when the light touched them. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it rested a sphere of crystal glowing faintly green. Daniel stepped forward, but Myra caught his arm. "Wait," she said firmly. "Places like this are never simple. Look at the ground." He glanced down and saw the floor between them and the pedestal was divided into large square tiles. Some were cracked, some smooth, and some etched with faint serpent symbols. Myra knelt and touched one of the tiles. "This is a trial," she murmured. "The old stories always said the crypt judges those who enter. If we step wrong, we might not walk out." Daniel frowned but did not back away. "Then we figure it out." He studied the tiles carefully. The serpent symbols seemed to form a path leading toward the pedestal, winding like the body of a snake. He pointed. "That's it. We follow the serpent's path." Myra nodded slowly. "If you are wrong, the floor may collapse." "Then let's not be wrong," Daniel said, stepping onto the first symbol. The tile sank slightly but held. He exhaled with relief. Myra followed him, her steps light and cautious. Together they moved tile by tile, tracing the serpent's winding path. Twice Daniel nearly stepped onto the wrong square, but Myra pulled him back in time. At last they reached the pedestal. The crystal sphere pulsed brighter as Daniel approached. He reached out, but again Myra stopped him. "Be careful," she said. "It may not welcome you." Daniel hesitated only a moment before placing his hand on the sphere. The glow surged, flooding the chamber with green light. His breath caught as visions filled his mind. He saw towering serpent beings moving through fire and chaos, their scales shining like emerald. He saw humans fighting beside them, wielding weapons of light. He saw a pact, sealed by blood and oath, binding human and serpent together. And then he saw betrayal, humans turning away, leaving the serpents to vanish into the deep earth. Daniel staggered back, his hand slipping from the sphere. The vision faded, but the echo of it still burned in his chest. "What did you see?" Myra asked softly. "History," Daniel said, his voice unsteady. "Humanity was here before. We stood with the Jade Serpent once. And we broke the pact." Myra looked troubled. "If that is true, then perhaps the crypt waits for us to answer for it." Before Daniel could reply, the ground trembled. The pedestal sank into the floor, and the walls shifted. A new passage opened, wide and dark, breathing out cold air that smelled of stone and age. Daniel steadied himself. "This is the way forward." Myra glanced at the closing tiles behind them. "And the only way left." They entered the new passage. It sloped downward, deeper into the crypt's heart. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, and the sound of stone grinding echoed all around, as if the crypt itself were alive and moving. At last they reached another chamber, this one vast and circular. Pillars lined the walls, each carved in the shape of a coiled serpent. In the center was a pool of still water, glowing faint green. Myra stared at it in awe. "This is no tomb. It is a trial ground. The Jade Serpent is not dead, it waits." Daniel's eyes burned with determination. "Then let's meet it. Humanity has unfinished business here." The water rippled as if answering his words. The air grew heavy, and the faint sound of a deep, distant breath echoed through the chamber. For the first time, Daniel and Myra both felt the presence of something vast and ancient watching them, waiting for their next step. The glow from the pool faded as Daniel and Myra stepped away. The chamber shook, and the air shifted. Slowly, walls began to rise from the ground, cutting across the space. The pillars of coiled serpents twisted and stretched until they formed new barriers. What was once an open room became a twisting passageway. Daniel tightened the strap of his pack. "It's changing the path," he muttered. Myra touched the stone wall beside her. It was warm, almost alive, like the scales of some great beast. "The crypt is testing us," she said. "It does not want intruders to reach the heart easily." The path before them narrowed into a dark corridor. The green glow along the walls flickered, as though the crypt itself was breathing. Daniel took the lead, and Myra followed close behind, her hand resting on the hilt of the small blade she carried. The corridor twisted and branched into multiple passages. Daniel stopped at the first fork, frowning at the scanner in his hand. The signal pulsed strongly in both directions. "It's messing with the readings," he said. Myra studied the carvings on the wall. Each passage was marked with serpent symbols, but one path showed a serpent coiled protectively around a human figure. The other showed a serpent with its jaws wide open, as if devouring. "Left," she said firmly. "This one shows unity. The other shows destruction." Daniel nodded and turned left. The path grew narrower until the walls pressed close to their shoulders. They walked carefully, listening to every sound. Once, Myra thought she heard a low hiss in the distance, but when she turned, there was nothing. The corridor opened into another chamber, but the floor shifted suddenly under Daniel's feet. He stumbled back just in time as a section of the ground fell away, revealing a pit of jagged stone spikes. Dust rose into the air, and Myra grabbed his arm, pulling him away from the edge. Daniel let out a shaky breath. That was close. The crypt punishes mistakes, Myra said. Every step must be chosen with care. They moved on, and the maze continued to change. Walls slid silently across the floor, sealing paths and opening new ones. Once, a section of the ceiling dropped so low they had to crawl beneath it. Another time, the floor tilted sharply, forcing them to cling to the walls until it leveled again. Despite the danger, Daniel felt a thrill. The crypt was alive, yes, but it was also a challenge. He believed it was designed to test worth, not simply destroy. Hours seemed to pass as they navigated the shifting passages. At last they entered a chamber where the walls were covered in glowing carvings. Myra gasped softly, stepping forward to read them. "These tell of the pact," she whispered. "Humans and serpents once stood together against an enemy of fire and shadow. They fought side by side, and the Jade Serpent promised to guard humanity if the bond was honored. But then, the humans broke the promise. They turned away, and the serpent sealed itself below, waiting for those who might seek to restore the bond." Daniel placed his hand on the wall, tracing the lines of the carvings. "Then this maze is not to keep us out, it's to see if we're worthy to come in." Before Myra could answer, the chamber shuddered. The walls split open, revealing 3 separate tunnels ahead. Each glowed faintly, but each carried a different sound. From the first came the echo of rushing water. From the second came the crackle of fire. From the third came silence. Daniel turned to Myra. "Which one?" She studied the symbols carved above the tunnels. The water symbol showed 2 figures standing together, the fire showed 1 figure standing alone, and the silence showed no figures at all. "Water," she decided. "The crypt values unity. Fire means trial alone. Silence means nothing." Daniel agreed, and they stepped into the water tunnel. The air grew damp, and soon they found themselves in a corridor where streams of glowing water ran along the walls. The ground was slick, and their steps echoed strangely. Suddenly, the walls began to close in, pressing toward them like jaws. Daniel shouted, grabbing Myra's hand, and together they ran. The corridor narrowed until the stone scraped their shoulders. Just when it seemed they would be crushed, they burst into a wider space. The walls stopped moving, locking into place. Both of them leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Myra's grip on his hand did not loosen. For a moment, neither spoke, but in their silence there was a quiet understanding. They looked up. Ahead of them, the tunnel opened into a vast hall. The ceiling was high, lined with more glowing crystal. At the far end stood a massive gate carved in the image of a serpent's head, its eyes shining green. Daniel's pulse quickened. "That's it," he whispered. "The heart of the crypt must be beyond that gate." Myra nodded, though unease flickered in her eyes. "The hardest test may wait there. We have passed trials of stone and fear, but the serpent will not open its heart easily." Daniel squared his shoulders, stepping forward. "Then we face whatever comes. Humanity has been tested before. This time, we will not break." The serpent eyes on the gate glowed brighter, as if watching them. The maze behind them sealed shut, leaving only one path forward. The trial of Worth had only begun. The massive gate carved in the shape of a serpent's head loomed before Daniel and Myra. Its stone scales glistened faintly under the green glow, and its eyes seemed alive, burning with quiet fire. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence of the crypt was heavy, as though the walls themselves were listening. Daniel stepped closer. The scanner strapped to his chest beeped wildly now, its readings spiking until the screen blurred. He placed a hand on the cold stone of the gate. The serpent's eyes brightened at his touch, and the ground trembled. Myra's hand moved to her blade. "Be ready," she said quietly. The gate split down the middle with a deep groan, stone grinding against stone. Beyond lay a vast chamber unlike anything they had seen so far. The walls were lined with tall crystal pillars, each glowing from within. Strange shadows flickered inside the crystals, twisting and coiling like living things. Daniel and Myra stepped inside, their footsteps echoing softly. The gate closed behind them with a heavy thud. The air grew thick, humming with unseen energy. Daniel felt his skin prickle, as though something vast and ancient was aware of his every breath. Then the voice came. It was not sound but thought, a deep echo that filled their minds. "You enter the heart of the serpent. You are intruders, yet you are also heirs." Daniel staggered slightly, gripping his head. "Did you hear that?" Myra nodded, her face pale. "It speaks inside the mind. It is the Jade Serpent." The shadows within the crystal pillars began to move, forming shapes of enormous serpent bodies coiling endlessly. Their eyes glowed bright green, watching. The voice spoke again. "Long ago, humans stood beside the serpent. You fought together in the Age of Fire. You swore an oath of unity. But the oath was broken. Humanity turned away." Images flooded Daniel's mind. He saw humans and serpents fighting together against towering creatures made of flame and shadow. He saw victories carved in firelight. Then he saw betrayal, humans walking away while the serpent coiled in silence, sinking into the earth. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We didn't know. Those who came after never learned of the pact." The voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Ignorance does not erase the wound. The pact was broken, and so the serpent sleeps. Why do you seek it now?" Daniel looked around the chamber. The flickering shadows pressed closer, waiting for his answer. He felt Myra's eyes on him, steady and calm. He took a breath. "Humanity has come far since then," he said. "We are scattered among the stars, facing new dangers. We don't want to turn away this time. We want to stand together again, not in betrayal but in unity." The chamber grew colder. The voice whispered with sharp intensity. "Words are easy. Unity is fragile. How will you prove what was broken can be healed?" Myra stepped forward then, her voice clear. "Test us. If humanity is to stand with the serpent again, let us face your trial. Let us show that loyalty still lives in our hearts." The pillars pulsed with brighter light. The shadows within them hissed, the sound echoing in their minds. "Then you shall be judged. To walk further, you must show more than courage. You must face fear, and you must face truth." The ground beneath them split suddenly, and the chamber reshaped itself. The crystal pillars slid apart, forming paths that stretched into darkness. The floor rippled like water, shifting under their feet. Daniel grabbed Myra's arm to steady her. "It's starting." The voice echoed again, softer this time but carrying great weight. "Step forward, humans. Face the echoes of your kind. Only then shall the serpent decide if the bond can be restored. The path before them lit up with faint green symbols. Daniel and Myra followed, their steps careful and slow. The air grew heavy with strange whispers, voices that were not their own. Some were in human tongue, others in alien speech, all overlapping. Daniel paused, listening. He heard words of doubt. Humans are weak. Humans betray. Humans destroy what they touch. His jaw tightened, but he walked on. Myra's hand brushed his shoulder lightly, steadying him. She heard voices too, whispers saying her people were fools for trusting outsiders, for walking beside a reckless human. The path ended at a crystal wall. Within it, shadows shifted into clear images. Daniel gasped as he saw himself reflected but not as he was. The image showed him turning away, leaving Myra behind in the maze. His reflection's eyes were cold, and its steps carried no loyalty. Myra, too, saw her own image in the crystal. She stood with her people outside the crypt, pointing at Daniel as soldiers dragged him away. Her reflection's face was hard, her voice silent but cruel. Daniel reached out to the crystal, his hand trembling. "That's not me," he whispered. "That's not us." The voice of the serpent filled the chamber again. "These are echoes of choice. This is what betrayal looks like. Will you deny it, or will you face it?" Myra stepped close to Daniel, her eyes steady. "It is a test. We face it together." Daniel nodded. His reflection sneered at him from within the crystal, but he pressed his palm firmly against the cold surface. Myra did the same. The shadows writhed, resisting, then slowly dissolved into nothing. The crystal cracked, and the path beyond opened. The chamber rumbled again. The voice whispered, "Lower now. You step forward, but the trial is not yet done. Beyond lies the true test of worth." The serpent waits. Daniel drew a deep breath, his resolve hardening. "Then we keep going. Humanity will not fail this time." Myra looked at him, her eyes calm but fierce. "And you will not walk alone." Together they stepped through the broken crystal wall, into the deeper darkness where the final judgment of the Jade Serpent awaited. The broken crystal wall closed behind them as Daniel and Myra stepped into a narrow hall. The green glow was dim here, and the air carried a chill that made their breath visible. The path sloped downward, leading them deeper into the crypt's heart. Daniel's scanner beeped faintly, the signal pulsing with steady rhythm. It was strong, almost too strong, as if they were walking directly into the center of the serpent's presence. He tightened his grip on the scanner, but his thoughts were interrupted by a sharp sound from ahead. A faint vibration traveled through the stone floor. Myra raised her hand, signaling him to stop. She listened, her ears sharper than his. The sound grew clearer: footsteps, many of them, echoing through the passage. Daniel frowned. "We're not alone." Moments later, the hall opened into a wider chamber. There, lined in formation, stood a group of alien guardians. Their tall frames were armored with bronze plates, their faces hidden behind helms shaped like serpent heads. Each held a long spear tipped with jade crystal. The leader of the guardians stepped forward, his voice firm and echoing. "You should not be here. The crypt is forbidden. Leave at once." Daniel lifted his chin, his voice steady. "We can't leave. We were called here. Humanity has a bond with the Jade Serpent, and we seek to restore it." The leader's eyes flashed green behind the serpent helm. "Your kind betrayed the pact once. Why should the serpent trust you again?" Myra stepped forward then, speaking in the alien tongue. Her words flowed quickly, sharp yet respectful. She explained that they had faced the maze, endured the visions, and had not turned away. She told them that the serpent itself had spoken, offering a chance for trial. The guardians murmured among themselves, their spears shifting uneasily. But the leader shook his head. "You do not understand what you risk. If the serpent awakens, it will not be controlled. Its power is too great. Better it stays sealed." Daniel's voice rose. "You think hiding power will keep you safe? The galaxy is not safe. There are enemies out there worse than anything in this crypt. Humanity doesn't want to control the serpent, we want to stand with it again. Together, we are stronger." The words echoed in the chamber. For a moment, the guardians were silent. But then, slowly, they began to advance, spears pointed toward Daniel and Myra. Myra's hand moved to her blade, but she knew they could not win against so many. "Daniel," she whispered, "if we fight here, we die." Daniel scanned the room quickly. On the far side, beyond the guardians, he saw another gate glowing faintly. "Then we don't fight. We run." Before Myra could protest, Daniel grabbed her hand and charged forward. The guardians shouted and lowered their spears. Daniel ducked, pulling Myra with him, as the first strike cut through the air above his head. Sparks flew as jade crystal struck stone. They sprinted across the chamber, weaving between the guardians. Myra's blade flashed once, knocking aside a spear that blocked their path. Daniel shoved another guardian aside with his shoulder, feeling the weight of the armor slam into him. The leader raised his spear high, the crystal tip glowing bright. "Stop them!" But Daniel and Myra were already near the gate. The green light pulsed stronger as they reached it, and the stone split open at their approach. A wave of energy surged outward, knocking the guardians back. Daniel and Myra stumbled through the gate just as it sealed shut behind them. The muffled sound of the guardians' voices faded, leaving only silence. They leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead, his chest rising and falling quickly. Myra's eyes were sharp with worry. "They fear the serpent," she said. "Maybe they are right. If it wakes, it may not see us as allies. It may see us only as intruders." Daniel shook his head firmly. The visions showed more. Humanity stood with it once. That bond is not gone, it's waiting. "We can prove it." Myra studied him for a moment. She wanted to argue, to remind him of the danger, but there was something in his eyes, a fire she could not ignore. She nodded slowly. "Then the trial must be faced. Whatever waits ahead, we meet it together." The new chamber was darker than the others. The walls here were smooth, and strange symbols glowed faintly, forming spirals that led toward a single massive door at the far end. The air was heavy with energy, each breath thick like smoke, though there was no fire. Daniel walked slowly toward the door. His steps echoed, each one sounding louder than the last. Myra followed, her blade still in hand, her eyes scanning the walls. The symbols pulsed brighter as they drew near, until the door shone with green light. The voice of the serpent filled their minds again, deeper than before. "You have defied fear. You have defied opposition. But the true trial remains. To awaken what sleeps, you must show more than courage. You must show your worth." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then test us. Humanity won't fail this time." The massive door began to rise, stone grinding against stone. A rush of cold air swept through, carrying with it the sound of something vast moving in the depths. Myra glanced at Daniel. "The serpent is close." Whatever waits beyond this door, it will decide everything. Daniel nodded, his face set with determination. Then let's finish this. Together they stepped forward, leaving behind the fading echoes of the Guardians, and entered the chamber where the final trial would begin. The massive door closed behind Daniel and Myra with a sound like rolling thunder. The chamber beyond was immense. The ceiling stretched high above, lined with green crystals that bathed the room in soft, pulsing light. In the center lay a colossal figure coiled upon a stone pedestal. Its body was made of jade and metal, scales glinting in the green glow, and its eyes were closed. Daniel's breath caught. "The Jade Serpent," he whispered. Myra stepped forward cautiously. "It is alive, in some way. We cannot make a wrong move here." As they approached, the serpent's eyes opened. Green light shot from them, filling the chamber, making the air vibrate. The voice filled their minds again, deeper and more powerful than before. "To reach me, you must prove worth. Courage alone is not enough. Show loyalty, show heart, show unity." The floor beneath them shifted suddenly, creating a platform of stone over a pit that seemed to extend endlessly below. The walls pulsed, and shadows rose, forming creatures of smoke and light. They were illusions, Daniel realized, designed to test their minds. The first illusion was fear itself. Shadows morphed into twisted forms of their deepest worries. Daniel saw the crypt collapse around them, burying him beneath stone. Myra saw herself falling endlessly, unable to save anyone. Daniel grabbed Myra's hand. "We face it together," he said firmly. He stepped forward, refusing to let the illusions control him. Myra nodded and followed, her grip tight on his hand. Slowly, the shadows faded as they moved forward, showing that courage and unity could defeat fear. The next test was doubt. Visions appeared of themselves betraying each other. Daniel saw himself leaving Myra behind to reach the serpent alone. Myra saw herself turning back, abandoning Daniel to die. They froze at first, but then Myra spoke softly. "We cannot let illusions decide who we are." Daniel nodded. "We are not them. We are here together." They reached for each other's hands, letting their trust anchor them. The visions tried to pull at their minds, whispering that loyalty was weakness, but they pressed on. Slowly, the illusions dissolved, leaving the chamber empty except for the serpent. Finally, the trial tested truth. A vision appeared of the past, showing humans breaking the ancient pact, leaving the serpent to seal itself underground. Daniel felt the weight of history pressing on him. He realized that the serpent's anger was not against them alone, but against humanity's failings over centuries. He spoke aloud, his voice echoing in the chamber. "We did not know, but we are not the ones who turned away. We want to restore the bond. We will prove it." Myra stepped beside him. "We carry the courage of humanity, and the promise to stand together. This is our truth." The serpent's eyes glowed brighter. The chamber vibrated as if it were breathing. The illusions vanished completely, leaving only the two of them and the massive figure coiled on its pedestal. A deep, resonant voice filled their minds again. "You have faced fear. You have faced doubt. You have faced truth. You have not turned away. You have shown loyalty and courage. You are worthy." Daniel and Myra stepped forward slowly, hearts pounding. The serpent shifted, its massive body uncoiling, scales brushing against the stone floor with a sound like thunder. Its eyes, bright green and glowing, focused on them. "The bond may be renewed," the voice said. "Humanity has returned to the path of unity. Stand together, and you shall be recognized as allies." Daniel felt awe and relief at the same time. He bowed slightly, not in fear, but in respect. Myra mirrored him, her voice steady. "We honor the serpent and the bond. We are here to walk together." The serpent's eyes softened, and it lowered its head. The green glow filled the room completely, washing over Daniel and Myra. The air vibrated with power, but it was not threatening. It was recognition, approval, and acceptance. Daniel felt a sense of clarity, as if the weight of centuries had lifted from humanity. Myra's hand brushed his, and he smiled at her. They had endured the trial together, and together they had proven their worth. The chamber shifted once more. A new passage opened beyond the serpent's pedestal, leading to a glowing stairway that ascended toward light. The serpent remained, coiled but watchful, its eyes following their every step. Daniel turned to Myra. "The trial is over. We did it?" Myra nodded, her expression calm but radiant with relief. "We have passed, but the serpent's presence reminds us that the real responsibility begins now. Humanity and the serpent together must honor what has been restored." Daniel took a deep breath, looking up the stairway. "Then we move forward. Whatever comes next, we face it as allies." The serpent's eyes glowed one last time before dimming slightly, and the path ahead seemed clear. They had earned the recognition of the ancient guardian. The bond, long broken, had the chance to flourish again. With determination and respect, Daniel and Myra stepped onto the stairway, ready to leave the trial chamber and face the next stage of their journey. The Jade Serpent watched, silent but present, its approval lingering in the air like a promise. Daniel and Myra stepped carefully up the glowing stairway. The air was warm and full of energy, and the walls shimmered with green light from the crystals embedded in the stone. Every step felt heavier, as if the serpent's presence filled the chamber with its awareness. At the top of the stairway, a vast hall opened before them. The ceiling stretched high, carved with intricate patterns that told the story of the serpent and humanity. The Jade Serpent lay coiled in the center, massive and radiant, its eyes now open, glowing with deep green light. Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. "It is magnificent," he whispered. Myra nodded. "It is more than a guardian. It is alive, aware of everything." The serpent lifted its head slowly, scales reflecting the light. It inhaled deeply, and the chamber vibrated with a low hum, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Its gaze fell on Daniel and Myra, and for a moment, silence held them captive. Then the voice came, not in words but directly into their minds. "You have proven courage. You have shown unity. You have faced fear and doubt. You are worthy." Daniel swallowed hard. "We came to restore the bond," he said aloud. "We do not seek to control you, only to stand with you as allies." The serpent's eyes softened. It coiled itself higher, lifting its massive body, and yet it did not appear threatening. Its presence was immense, but it radiated a quiet power, as if testing their intentions. Myra stepped forward. "We promise loyalty and respect. Humanity wants to honor the pact that was broken long ago. We are ready to learn from you and to protect what you guard." A ripple of light flowed across the serpent's scales. Slowly, it uncoiled further, revealing the full length of its body, stretching across the chamber. The green glow intensified, and the air filled with energy that made their hair lift slightly and their skin tingle. The serpent spoke again, voice calm and steady. "Long ago, humans turned away. The bond was lost. You, the ones who walk together, have shown that loyalty still exists. You are recognized. The bond can be renewed. Daniel felt a deep warmth in his chest. The weight of centuries of fear and mistrust seemed to lift. Myra smiled faintly, her eyes shining with relief. They had passed every test, faced every trial, and now they were acknowledged by the ancient guardian itself. Outside, the desert stretched for miles, but inside the crypt, the air was alive with possibility. Daniel realized that humanity had been given a second chance, a chance to stand beside an ancient power and protect the galaxy with it. The serpent moved closer to them, its massive head lowering to meet their gaze. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We are ready," he said. Myra placed her hand on his arm, steadying him. "Together," she whispered. The serpent's eyes glowed brighter, and a wave of energy flowed outward, filling the chamber. It was not harmful, it was recognition, a bond forming between the ancient being and the humans who had proven themselves. Then, as if understanding their intentions fully, the serpent lowered its head gently, coiling around them without threatening. The green glow bathed them in light, and Daniel felt a connection he could not explain, a sense of history, of trust, of something older than the stars themselves. They had not come for treasure, nor for glory. They had come to restore a bond, and now that bond was alive once more. The serpent's presence was a promise of protection, of knowledge, and of unity between species that had long been divided. Daniel looked at Myra. "We did it," he said softly. "We actually did it." Myra smiled, squeezing his hand. "We did. Humanity has a place here, with the serpent. And now it is our responsibility to honor this trust." The serpent coiled fully and rose, towering above them. Its eyes, glowing bright green, scanned the chamber and then seemed to focus on the outside world. It moved with grace, slow but powerful, as if stretching after a long sleep. Then it lifted from the pedestal entirely, its massive body moving forward. For a moment, Daniel and Myra feared it might attack. But instead, it paused, looking at them again, and then moved toward the exit of the crypt, as if inviting them to follow. Daniel and Myra exchanged a glance and nodded. Together, they stepped forward, walking beside the great guardian. Outside, the desert wind shifted, carrying the promise of change. Humanity was no longer alone. The Jade Serpent, ancient and mighty, now walked with them not as a weapon, not as a judge, but as an ally. A bond had been restored, a pact renewed, and the possibilities were endless. Daniel lifted his head to the sky, feeling the weight of the moment. "This is only the beginning," he said. Myra smiled, her eyes shining with hope. The beginning of something greater. For both humanity and the serpent. Together, they stepped into the light of the desert, the serpent's massive form coiling behind them, a guardian and friend for the new age. The crypt had tested them, and they had endured. The bond was restored, and humanity had proven itself worthy once more. The Jade Serpent's green glow faded slowly, leaving behind a promise that would echo across the stars. The story of courage, loyalty, and unity had found its place. Humanity had returned, not as intruders, but as allies of the greatest guardian the galaxy had ever known.